You're listening to the Dead Presidents Podcast.
And I find myself prostrate from the scourge of war.
Presidential war.
Presidential war. What is it good for? Intellectual stimulation. Say it again now. Presidential war. What is it good for? Best game in the nation. Presidential war.
Welcome to the Dead Presidents Podcast. I'm James J. Hamilton.
I'm Stephen Lincoln Douglas.
And we are joined here in the studio by our first ever guest in the illustrious history of presidential war,
The inimitable.
Elliott Burns. Welcome to the show.
Hello, I'm Elliott. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Elliot is a listener of the show, into what we're doing, and the first person we were able to coerce to one of our homes.
Yeah.
Does anybody know you're here?
My mom?
Okay, well.
Does she listen to the show?
No.
No. And that's how you're able to beat her in Jeopardy, right?
Yep. The XYZ affair?
Yeah. That was Final Jeopardy, and Elliott won by listening to episode 2.
Always out to educate at the Dead Presidents Podcast. And we're going to do just that. Got another edition of Presidential War.
Yeah. Yeah, Elliott is a stand-up comedian. He and I started comedy probably the same month. This month, probably 11 years ago. June 2010. Our comedy birthdays, right around the same time. I think, did we go see Lincoln together in a theater? I think we did.
We saw and we saw Book of Mormon, too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Never got to see it.
Well, pretty good.
Yeah. Speaking of pretty good, Presidential War.
Yeah.
You all know the rules. You know the way the game is played. The cards are dealt and shuffled. Never mind. They're shuffled. They're being dealt.
Yep. We forgot to deal.
That's okay.
Yep, this game is going to be me versus Elliott. Stephen Lincoln Douglas will be the moderator.
Right? I'm going to be
judge.
kind of the vice president in the Senate situation.
Yeah, if one of us dies during the game, you'll take
I got to
over.
take over. Yeah. Okay, cards are dealt. I will take control of the category cards.
All right.
You both have copies of the complete book of U.S. presidents to hand, and the game is about to begin. Gentlemen, reveal your first cards.
I've got John Adams.
Zachary Taylor.
And they will be competing in the category of domestic policy.
Well, John Adams, more of a big foreign policy accomplishment with the XYZ affair, as we already mentioned.
Yep.
His domestic policy included the Alien and Sedition Acts, as we've talked about before. I think we've had him in this category before.
Indeed.
He passed the Judiciary Act, also known as the Midnight Judges.
Yeah.
He appointed, which was repealed, but he appointed Chief Justice Marshall. Pretty big domestic accomplishment, I guess. You could consider that within domestic policy.
That's right. So, couple good, couple bad.
Rebellion. The economy doing pretty good.
For
During
a
his
fledgling nation, yeah.
Not any big economic reforms, but it was in pretty good shape. For Zachary Taylor,
I have his Galpin claim.
Oh, yeah. It was a big deal.
Well,
The old Galpin claim.
yeah, our
And
listeners.
that's going way back. That's going back to pre-John Adams time, even.
Our listeners are going to become experts in Zachary Taylor next week when we get to the Taylor episode.
That's right.
That's when Elliott will become a full master of Zachary Taylor. He was only president for a year and a half before he died, so he didn't have a lot of domestic policy.
He was a slave owner, but opposed slavery.
That's correct. He kind of does a bit of a 180 from what people figured he was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Which is admirable. Maybe we should touch on the Galpin claim a little bit. That is a family that is asking for reparations stemming back to the Revolutionary War. And there's a little bit of a situation in the Taylor cabinet when it comes to these claims.
Yep. Yeah, because the Secretary of Treasury decides to pay the interest on the claim after decades of litigation.
That's right.
But the attorney for the claimants, who's going to get a big cut of it, happens to be the War Secretary.
Yep. And he
So that doesn't
hadn't
look
really
good.
told anybody about that.
Well,
So it kind of looks shady.
yeah. Well, the main domestic policy of the Taylor years was the Compromise of 1850, which
Right
wasn't concluded until a few months after he died, but he was not exactly a huge fan of it. He was talking about vetoing the Clay Omnibus Bill, where all of it was in one bill. But he stood up to slave owners and Southerners and Texans who wanted to expand slavery, even though he was a slave owner.
An unexpected move.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I'd probably give the hand to John Adams just because Taylor didn't get to follow through with anything.
Well, let me be the judge of that. Due to the brevity of Taylor's term, we're going to give this one to John Adams.
Nice. All right. Next
And we'll
hand,
move on to our next hand.
Rutherford B. Hayes.
Grover Cleveland.
Ooh, and
You got first term.
it's
Grover
first
Cleveland.
term Cleveland.
Yeah, there are two.
So-
They
Cleveland cards.
separated out.
The better of the two. And they are going head to head in the category of relationship with the people.
Well, Rutherford B. Hayes did not win the popular vote.
That's right.
Grover Cleveland won the popular vote 3 elections in a row.
Yeah.
Even though that middle election, he did not win the Electoral College.
Yeah, Hayes coming in with kind of a bit of a taint.
Yeah.
Not quite corrupt bargain outcry, but close.
Well. Yeah, the people's still pretty divided during the Hayes time.
That's right.
I don't know any Rutherford B. Hayes jokes, but I do know a Grover Cleveland joke that he got up on the trolley and gave his seat to 3 women.
He could have done so very
Yeah.
well. He's a big man.
Yeah, he definitely could have done that.
He's the second biggest president after old Taft.
Unless Taft would have given his seat to 4 women.
Yeah.
Cleveland. Well, those 3 women, Cleveland voters.
Probably thanked him for it.
Among the people. Cleveland with his very popular 21-year-old first lady.
Yeah.
Got the love of the people that way.
That's for sure. There was nothing like, you'd think about that today. And it's like, that would almost certainly cause a public outrage.
Yeah.
And in Cleveland's day, it was like, good on you, mate. Nice going.
Mm-hmm.
And people loved it.
Yeah.
pretty popular marriage.
They did not like his extramarital affairs and quickly took to the slogan, "Ma, ma, where's my pa? Gone to the
That's
White
right.
House, ha, ha, ha."
Indeed.
Well, his premarital affair.
Yeah, this was a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had an affair with a woman, and it resulted in a bastard child.
Yeah.
And what does Cleveland do? Is he going to deny it and try and cover it up? No. He pretty much says, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, and back when
sends him money.
Yeah, back when he was having that affair and the woman gave birth, he wasn't necessarily the only man who was having an affair with that woman at the time. She was,
A woman of loose
yeah.
morals.
But the other guys were married men. And
Cleveland's not, so he's going to take one for the team,
Yeah.
big time.
And I'm only allowed to stick to his first term.
I think with this one, you could kind of go just overall Grover Cleveland. I think with this category, it doesn't have to be restricted to the first term.
Yeah, we're not too strict about a lot of the rules.
Mark,
We just
Yeah.
make it up as we go along.
Mark Twain was a Grover Cleveland fan. For his patriotic views, he's won for you the homage of half the nation and the enmity of the other half.
Nice. Some high praise
Yeah.
from old Sam Clemens.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking I got to judge in favor of Grover Cleveland on this one. Hayes, I mean, Lemonade Lucy, no alcohol. Perhaps not as popular.
No.
And that'll bring us to,
George W. Bush.
Woodrow Wilson.
and they are going head to head. This will be an interesting one. Relationship with the media.
Wow.
We've all lived through one of these guys.
Yeah.
We remember that particular relationship. Kind of stormy.
Yeah, W didn't really have not a darling of the media so much. That was the heyday of like The Daily Show, Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert nightly ripping George W. Bush a new one. And yeah, most of the media outside of like Fox News and particularly conservative media, not a big fan of George W. Bush. Woodrow Wilson, on the other hand, he got a nice sedition act in there to stop anyone from saying anything bad about him.
That's right.
He was also hidden away from the media for a good amount of time after
Yeah,
he recovered
correct.
from a stroke.
Yeah, he pretty much...
It raised quite a few questions about whether or not he was still in charge of the country.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, he stripped out and his wife was, like, practically running the country for the end of his term, and nobody even knew about it. Obviously, two very different times.
Yeah, you didn't have any Rock Against Wilson CDs
You know,
or Victrola records
no
back
one
in
was
the
out there
day.
saying Wilson equals Hitler.
Mm-mm. No.
Hitler wasn't Hitler yet. Could have been an amateur painter.
I know. Woodrow Wilson. Yeah, he was not. Yeah, Hitler was just, what, a foot soldier in the German army at the time.
That's right. He was in the 16th Bavarian.
Yeah, because of Wilson in the United States and the, 14 points and the punitive peace imposed on Germany. That's what made Hitler really mad, and the German people receptive to his message. So
Yeah.
Woodrow Wilson partially responsible for Hitler.
But I'm going to say that even though it's true, I'm not going to count that against Wilson in this particular category.
No.
Could be said, though, that he would be the striker to the Wolverine that Hitler became.
Yeah. could be true. He'd be one of the villains in Hitler's origin story. Yeah, but between the Sedition Act and him no one knowing that he was debilitated by a stroke, it seemed like the media was probably pretty, tame.
He had a pretty good hand on him.
There's no way George W. Bush could have stroked out and no one knew.
No, he choked on a pretzel and everybody knew.
Yeah. Well, he bruised his face and stuff.
Yeah.
I would have thought, if he didn't, have a visible bruise from that, no one would have known about it.
Mr. President, what happened? I fell down the stairs. That's right, he's clumsy. I think we're going to have to award this hand to Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah.
He just had a tighter grip on the media.
Yeah. Hand's going to go to Elliott. He's out to a lead so far. I'm getting William Howard Taft.
JFK.
And this is an interesting one. I want to hear both of you talk this out, play by play, or in this case, blow by blow. Gentlemen, which of these two would win in a fight?
JFK was actually a war hero from World War II, though he was on several bennies and opiates to kind of help him from a wound that never fully healed. So is this JFK as a teenager and Taft as a teenager?
That's one thing that Jim and I debate all the time is how do we want to do this? Do we want to do it as their president? Do we want to do this in their prime? It's an interesting
I mean, we can probably do it
conversation
when they're president, but let's say Kennedy, he has a bad back, he's all messed up, he can be all hopped up on drugs, he'll get an injection, he'll get a Dr. Feelgood thing to, I'm sure he was into that kind
Not
of stuff.
feel anything.
Yeah, he probably doesn't feel anything, he's probably on speed or some kind of uppers.
Then we'll just assume that he hasn't had sex yet that day, so he's pissed.
Well, that gives him a headache, he said.
Yeah. So he's angry and he's jacked up.
Yeah.
So he's ready to fight, and then
Taft could be blinding drunk though and still operating.
Well,
he's a big man.
He's 350.
Got our biggest president in there.
Absorb a lot of alcohol before the fight.
Yeah, a lot of food. I don't know. But, Taft would probably be just running around. Kennedy's just dodging out of the way.
Do we have heights and heights on them?
Yeah, let's see. Taft, 6'2". Weights, as president, his weight soared to 332 pounds.
How tall again?
6'2".
Oh, 6'2". Okay.
He's a big man.
See, yeah, he's
Could come down to
a pretty big guy.
6 feet and a half inch tall, 170. Not bad.
Pretty good shape. Pretty good shape with JFK.
Yeah.
You gotta give him that. And I mean, you see video of the guy swimming and stuff. He's pretty cut. He's in good shape.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's banging all kinds of actresses and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have... Kennedy was a golfer and touch football, but no boxing. Taft would have had to have fought with Roosevelt in the White House
Well,
for exercise.
Roosevelt exercised by fighting against much younger
Against
men
actual
and
prize fighters.
wrestling champions.
One of which blinded him
Yeah.
in one eye.
Taft also golfed.
Yeah, he was really
First president to toss out the first
nervous about
pitch at a
that, too.
baseball game. I don't think he was too athletic.
For athleticism, Kennedy has 5 romances listed right before it lists his marriage, and then more women listed in extramarital affairs.
He was
That's
a busy
probably
man.
That's probably not even a fraction. I remember, Kennedy was #1 on top 5 presidential adulterers,
Right.
and then since we recorded that, I've seen multiple other women that I didn't even that didn't even come up when I was researching that he was with.
He also slept with Judith Campbell Exner a lover of mafia crime boss Sam Giancana, so he had no fear.
Hmm.
Yeah, and Bobby Kennedy was going after old Momo. So, yeah. There's that. I don't know. I'm thinking the edge here is going to go to Kennedy.
Yeah. I think if he gets the right cocktail of drugs in him, he's going to be able to...
He's going to be in pretty good shape.
Definitely outlast.
Yeah, I think Taft's going to get winded.
Outsmart Taft.
And
He did swim, too, one island to another island after he was shot.
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And yeah, he had some problems. He had to wear like a back brace and stuff.
Yeah.
And different things. But I think if he's on the right little Dr. Feelgood course, he's going to be in good shape for this fight. I think we'll award this one to JFK.
Yep. Next up, I've got George Washington.
Chester A. Arthur.
We got the father of our country going against the father of true presidential style in the unfortunate category of best president overall.
Well, all right, Elliott, make an argument that Chester Arthur's better than George Washington.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume that most listeners just remember that Chester A. Arthur was president as I drew his card.
Yeah. Well, he
So-
got drawn in a game of presidential war. I think it's safe to assume he was president.
Listeners, if you didn't know, Chester Arthur, name of a president.
That's right.
And
And he was like I would say he's the most stylish president, hands down. The guy had taste and class. Snappy dresser, always just to the nines.
Well,
The only positive listed in the Book of Presidents is that he was a nice settling down for a country whose president was just assassinated.
That's true. I mean, I give Arthur a lot of credit. I like Chester Arthur. I think that he is a great redemption story.
yeah.
From somebody that was pretty much notoriously corrupt up until the point he became president. And he did a complete 180, turned against the people that made him, and actually accomplished some good things. You have Chester Arthur to thank, for the fact that we actually had a navy during the Spanish-American War. There's some good stuff Chester Arthur did. He vetoed a bunch of crummy pork barrel stuff that, he didn't think I was going to do nobody no good. But unfortunately, he's coming head-to-head against George Washington, which,
Well, if we look at rankings by a historian poll in 1962, but they don't say who the body was that did the ranking, just historians, he was 10th out of 12 for average presidents.
Whereas George Washington is kind of synonymous with the name of the category, best president overall on a lot of lists.
Yeah. Him and Lincoln, he's pretty much always top two.
That's it. And it's usually just one way or t'other.
Yeah.
So this hand is going to George Washington.
We don't need to belabor this category.
Indeed. Coming up next,
Grant?
Madison.
in their category, relationship with Congress. How are these cats doing congressionally?
Well, let's see. Madison, former member of Congress, the leading member of the first Congress.
That's right.
And his party, the Democratic Republicans, dominated Congress when he was in office, but they'd been dominating it for so long that they're kind of developing factions in and of themselves.
Yeah.
Congress kind of pushed a declaration of war on him in 1812 that he wasn't necessarily as hawkish about as Congress. After the war, Congress gave him rechartering the Bank of the United States, which he had previously argued was unconstitutional, but he signed that.
Grant did ratify the 15th Amendment through Congress,
That's right.
though no part of that in his section states his role.
Well,
And that actually that might
constitutional-
bring up an interesting point about Grant in terms of his direct role with Congress.
Well, yeah. Yeah, the president doesn't have necessarily an official role in constitutional amendments, but yeah, this is, the post-war radical Republican Congress kind of just doing their own thing.
Yeah.
The beginning of an era where Congress is dictating more to the president. They're not necessarily asking his opinion. Another thing about Madison, in Congress repealed the embargo
Right.
and the Non-Intercourse Act. And Madison was in favor of the embargo as much as anybody. I don't know if he was still wanting to push it so much at that time, but that was a policy he believed in that didn't really work. And he also vetoed internal improvement bills, as we know.
Grant was responsible for a scandal that forced the resignation of Secretary Richardson for the whiskey ring. So it looks like hundreds of thousands of dollars that were to go to Congress's approval were swept into the pockets of those who collected them.
Yeah. Yeah, you got some issues.
He's being investigated by Congress.
Yeah. So
in
there's
various
some trouble
ways.
there. I mean, he's not Andy Johnson now,
No.
but there's some issues.
His vice president, who was a House Speaker at the time, was accused of accepting stock, where House Speaker Colfax and Representative later President Garfield of Ohio were also accused of accepting stock, and they were letting corporations be delinquent in their taxes. So he did not seem to collect most of the money, or 50% at least lost for revenue collected.
So then we got some turbulent stuff going on.
Congress
At
was
Grant's
passing
administration.
force bills authorizing the use of force against the South for denying votes to black people.
Yeah, we're in a
And
tough
against
spot
the
during
KKK,
Grant. We got
which
Reconstruction going on.
Grant did kind of carry out that policy pretty faithfully.
Yeah, that's definitely a nod in Grant's favor. Is like he's trying to stand up for people of color, and that's unfortunately going to fall by the wayside here with his successor
Well, I know that he was
to a certain
forced
extent.
later on in life, and it seems that mostly members of Congress were responsible for the lack of the collection of the taxes. So I don't think he necessarily had a role as much in that, because he retired pretty poor. He had to write a book, didn't he, just to survive?
That's correct.
Yeah, he
He got into some bad business ventures.
He had a business
he got
partner
kind
who
of swindled
swindled
him.
him out of all of his money.
Yeah,
he
and
had to
their
raise
family was
memoirs.
destitute, and it was basically he's racing against the clock. He's dying, and he's trying to finish his memoirs before he dies. He finishes them. I think it was 3 weeks
Something like that.
before he
yeah.
died, so just barely
Under-
completes these
yeah,
memoirs. And,
Mark Twain was
Mark
publishing
Twain
them.
steps in
He's being mentioned multiple
to
times
give
in
him
the
a hand.
episode.
Yeah,
I don't know. Both these presidents kind of on their heels with Congress in a sense.
yeah.
I might say things worked out better for Madison at the end.
Yeah, I'm thinking the edge kind of goes to James Madison here.
Go to the next hand.
Benjamin Harrison.
LBJ.
And we're going to be looking at their speeches and writings.
Well, LBJ, known of course for his great ordering pants speech.
That's right.
Go on YouTube and listen to the LBJ.
Yep, LBJ ordering pants.
If you've not done so already.
You're not going to regret checking that out.
He does get a boost from being alive during television.
True. Definitely has an advantage in the recognizability factor, I guess. Recognition factor.
Benjamin Harrison's first quality on his personality is he was known as the human iceberg and disliked small talk.
Yeah. So there's that. That might say something about...
Well, LBJ did write a book, The Vantage Point, Perspectives of the Presidency, 1963 to 1969. He wrote that book in 71.
LBJ was also a pirate mouth
Indeed.
and swore so regularly that they don't really have his recordings in the Library of Congress open to view in the Smithsonian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's in the Too Hot for TV
Yeah.
explicit section. You got to be 18 and over to listen to LBJ's speech. I don't know if he's necessarily known as a great speaker, really. He's more like a great backroom dealer.
Yeah.
And he would go to the bathroom at night when he was young just to meet other political figures to strike up a conversation.
LBJ, yeah. And when he was president, he would go into the bathroom. He'd be talking to an advisor or something, and he'd go in the bathroom to, like, take a dump, and they'd have to follow him
Continue
in
the
there
conversation.
and listen to him while he's taking a dump.
Well,
Harrison wrote a couple of books, I remember, because he defeated James Buchanan in this category. You know,
That's right, yeah.
Where his book was, as long as he wasn't defending the presidency of James Buchanan, it had to have been better than Buchanan.
Yeah.
He wrote This Country of Ours and Views of an Ex-President.
And we have discussed this before. Those books, I've been unable to find them. It doesn't even look like they've ever been, like, reprinted or anything, even like a cheap, like, mass market paperback just for people to check out. But
Benjamin Harrison, definitely one of the handful of, like, least known,
Yeah.
least interest in him as a president.
Yeah.
both of his quotes are full paragraphs. So he was not brief in anything that he felt he needed to say. And he also does not speak in any way that would translate well into today. The indiscriminate denunciation of the rich is mischievous. It perverts the mind, poisons the heart, and furnishes an excuse to crime. No man could ever made richer or happier by it. It is quite as illogical to despise a man because he is rich as because he is poor. Not what a man has, but what he is, settles his class. We cannot right matters by taking from one what he honestly acquired to bestow upon another what he has not earned. So he took a paragraph to say, don't be mean to rich people.
Yeah, it's windy.
That would not stand the test of time.
No.
Yeah.
Modern speechwriter would probably cut that down, and also probably have you not say that at all.
Yeah.
You don't defend the rich, you demonize the poor.
That's right.
I don't know. I might say Johnson should win. He at least, like, gave speeches on TV and stuff.
Yeah, I think he
More
just...
to it.
I think the modernity of him just kind of gives him the edge here, which is not necessarily fair because I don't know that Johnson has any, like, real standout speeches. I think the thing that jumps to me in my mind is, like, when he's being, like, really uncouth and vulgar.
Yeah, or when he's, like, announcing that he's not going to run for president again.
Right.
Or
That's the
announcing,
only
like, things
televised
going bad in Vietnam.
Yeah, I
But I don't know.
I think I'm going to rule a draw.
Yeah.
I'm going to
I'd
rule
agree
a
with
draw
that.
here.
Our listeners who have somehow found and read the Benjamin Harrison books.
Yeah.
Tell us whether they're
And I'm sure
good.
there's next to none of you. But we're going to call a draw here, and we get a new category coming up.
Bill Clinton.
Jimmy Carter.
We know who these guys are.
Yeah.
Both these guys are still alive at this point, and more importantly, both of their wives are still alive because this category is First Lady Looks. Oh.
Ooh.
We're gonna
So
put
we got
down
Hillary Clinton
Yeah.
and Rosalind Carter taking a
Rosalind-
little turn on the catwalk.
We're gonna put down the complete book of U.S. presidents and look up Google Images. Get Rosalind Carter's not bad looking.
Hillary Clinton is not what you would call good looking, but she's not ugly.
No, we don't have to go with current 96-year-old Rosalind Carter. But
Oh yeah, there's that photo that went viral of the Bidens visiting the
Yeah.
Carters, and the Carters look like super diminutive.
yeah, they look like hobbits.
Yeah,
next
they
to
just
Gandalf.
they look very like incredibly tiny, just little diminutive, like dwarven type.
Rosalind
creatures.
Carter was pretty good looking back in the day.
Hillary Clinton hot only yielded pictures of her in full pantsuits.
I think Hillary Clinton had a period where she was, well,
She did post
I think there was a
picture
period
on
where she was
President's
looking
Day of this little girl will be president one day,
Mhm.
or on her own birthday, and even at 9, she looked exactly as she does as an adult.
yeah, there's that like early '90s period of Hillary.
Well, here's
Where
a
she's-
senior photo of her, not bad.
There's very young Rosalind Carter.
Very young Rosalind Carter does look better than very young Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, I think Rosalind Carter's actually pretty hot.
It's looking a bit like Maureen O'Hara in the young photograph.
Yeah.
No, here's Hillary Clinton in college, wearing exactly what the daughter in the Addams Family wears. I can't say much for Hillary Clinton being pretty.
She's got a great personality.
Very good personality. She has very thick glasses.
But as her husband, I think once was quoted as saying, "You gotta be careful when she gets pissed off because she can be a bitch." And on that note, I think we're gonna award this hand, and therefore the tiebreaker, to Jimmy Carter and James J. Hamilton.
Yep. Next up, I've got Richard Nixon.
Andrew Johnson.
And they're going to be going head to head in foreign policy.
Oh. Andrew Johnson. Let me look up his foreign policy. Mostly putting the country back together.
Well,
That's the goal.
Richard
Yep.
Nixon, pretty successful foreign policy-wise.
Opening
Yeah.
China.
Yep,
With
pretty
Kissinger.
titanic foreign policy achievements, really.
Yeah, you know, if Nixon had never been caught for Watergate and just finished out his term scot-free, he'd probably be remembered as one of the better presidents.
Indeed.
He opened China, which is a huge policy, and just like the concept Nixon to China is like a concept that is brought up in all kinds of contexts.
Yeah.
Like it was huge. He signed a treaty with Russia to ban nuclear weapons from the ocean floor, international waters, agreements to destroy chemical weapons stockpiles, and then the strategic arms limitation agreements, two nuclear arms reduction treaties, obviously getting out of Vietnam and ending the Vietnam War after escalating the Vietnam War.
I had kind of hoped that Johnson had maybe traveled in his youth, like JQA, but he never even attended school that would give him the opportunity to go anywhere.
That's right.
He just listened to books in Raleigh, North Carolina, and then moved to Tennessee.
And as you stated before, his presidency, not too much going on with foreign powers.
Did do the purchase of Alaska, but that was mostly Seward.
That's true.
I don't
Yeah.
think that had Johnson's approval.
Well, would have had to sign off on it in some way.
Yeah, that's right. That was a purchase from Russia.
Yep, he can take credit for that. But
It was known as Seward's Icebox at the time.
mhm.
Not popular until gold was discovered,
Yeah,
and actually all kinds of other natural resources that weren't a thing at the time.
turned out to be good, but it's not really.
So that's a plus for Andy Johnson, but unfortunately, it's not going to be enough to trounce Nixon in this category.
Does not seem as if he's ever even left the country. He retired back to Tennessee. Yep.
I think he probably spent his retirement more focusing on like drinking.
Yeah, he got back into the Senate,
Yeah,
so that was
As a Democrat, though.
yeah.
yeah.
That's kind of a big deal, in a sense. He looked at it as kind of redemptive.
Because he had lost a couple other campaigns.
That's right.
Post president.
Next up,
I've got Harry Truman.
Herbert Hoover.
Truman and Hoover going head to head. Well, not them so much going head to head as their wives going head to head in the category of First Lady accomplishments.
Oh.
Well, let's see here. First Lady Bess Truman, who resented Truman's decision to accept the vice presidency and detested her years in the White House.
Not having a great time.
An emotional separation developed between the president and Mrs. Truman, according to their daughter, maybe? Margaret Truman.
Mm-hmm.
She discontinued the First Lady press conferences that had been initiated by Eleanor Roosevelt.
Yeah, didn't handle that quite as well.
Limited
And not a
official
fan.
entertainment. Tough act to follow in terms of Eleanor Roosevelt.
That's right. Eleanor Roosevelt, who had been running the show for 12 years at that point.
Oh. So, Herbert Hoover married an equal age. Lou Henry was his wife's name. For accomplishments, she did travel with him to China as he was a mining engineer and geologist. And she studied languages. She could speak Latin, Mandarin Chinese, Spanish, German, Italian, and French. And she oversaw the construction of the presidential retreat at Rapidian Camp in Madison County, Virginia. And was the first lady to make a regular nationwide radio broadcast.
Hey, some nice achievements for Lou Hoover.
Yeah.
And yeah,
As First Lady, she
pretty intelligent.
She entertained frequently as First Lady.
Yeah, she's speaking 5 languages over here. Bess Truman, yeah, she could speak American.
Yeah.
Herbert Hoover was the first president to be announced on radio, correct?
I think that's right.
Could be.
I think that's right.
Swissville, KDKA.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right. He was the first. He was the first that I think had radio addresses. I mean, FDR made it a whole thing,
Yeah.
but I think Hoover actually had done the first ones. This seems like a pretty easy victory for Lou Hoover.
Yeah. Bess Truman probably wouldn't care that she lost the category. Wouldn't care too much for
No, I
the
don't
game.
think she would.
I retract my radio statement about Herbert Hoover being the first president to be announced as winner. That happened earlier.
Oh,
Elliott's
In
gonna
any
win
event.
that hand.
yeah. Hoover's going to take it.
Next up, I've got Calvin Coolidge.
Ronald Reagan.
Ooh, and they're going head to head in looks. Which of these guys is hotter?
Ronald Reagan.
Who'd you rather shack up with here, James?
Well, let's see. Well, depends when we're talking. Because young Ronald Reagan very, very handsome.
Oh, Reagan. I mean, I
he's
think I don't
pretty
know
old,
that there's any question here. I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
He continued to wear designer clothes into his presidency, though.
I mean, he was pretty old by the time he was president, but yeah, he's
Yeah, I mean,
he's a
I
big-
wouldn't knock Calvin Coolidge's looks, except in that one portrait that I think is terrible. He looks really bad in, but
yeah, I mean, he's all right.
not a terrible looking guy.
Reagan.
But Reagan, I mean,
he's got
Hollywood A-lister.
he's
I mean,
got the movie star
leading
good
man
looks.
kind of thing. So definitely knew how to keep himself looking pretty good. This seems to be a pretty easy victory for Ronald Wilson Reagan.
Yeah,
Several marriages for Ronald Reagan.
yeah,
So we had
with Hollywood actresses.
Right.
You don't see Calvin Coolidge picking up any starlets.
No, although I think Grace Coolidge was pretty attractive.
Yeah.
Not too shabby.
No.
But yeah, this hand's going to go to Ronald Reagan.
Here. Next up, I've got second term Grover Cleveland.
Teddy Roosevelt.
And we're going to be looking at, and I think these guys have gone head to head in this before, but we're looking at biggest partier. These guys actually would party together. Known collectively as the Big One and the Dude. These guys were out together. Which one of them could live it up a little bit more when these two hit the town?
Well, I think Cleveland might be known as the bigger partier. He was a pretty big drinker. Obviously, we mentioned his forays with women of loose morals earlier.
Yeah.
And he was a big beer drinker. And he and a friend made a resolution to drink less. They were only going to drink like a certain lower number of beers per day, and so they started using a giant glass so they could say they only had a couple beers even though they were obscenely huge.
According to the Big Book of Presidents, Teddy Roosevelt mostly lived the way that Subaru describes its customers as living in their commercial. Plenty of horseback riding, hiking, boxing, lots of lively activities. He also kept books of poetry that he would write himself. He did not smoke and seldom drank.
Yeah, I think TR, when he went to college, he got drunk one night and he was like, nope, I didn't like that. And he never got drunk ever again the rest of his life. I think he might just have one drink or something every once in a while. He seemed like he's too busy to party.
Yeah.
He's
reading a couple books in a day.
Yeah.
He doesn't have time for...
He's going hunting, horseback riding,
shenanigans.
spending time with his family. He doesn't have time to party.
That's it.
Whereas Cleveland, he's unmarried. He was definitely partying.
That's it. And this hand will go to Grover Cleveland.
George Bush Sr.
Versus James A. Garfield.
In the category of pre-presidential accomplishments.
George Bush Sr., pretty accomplished, World War II Navy fighter pilot, ran the CIA, operated as the CEO of, was it Halliburton?
No, that was Dick Cheney.
Yeah,
Bush, he was in the oil business.
He was the CEO of a major oil corporation, I believe.
Yeah. He was in the House of Representatives. Chair of the Republican National Committee.
Decent
For a
ball player
spell.
at Yale.
Yeah. College World Series participant.
Yeah, quite a bit going on for George H.W. Bush. I mean, obviously, vice president for 8 years under Reagan. I mean,
Yeah.
And arguably, I'd probably say he's probably our second best vice president.
Yeah.
I mean, I hand it to Walter Mondale, but
Yeah, and well, James Garfield was an Ohio state senator in 1859 to 61 when he left to join the Union Army. Was elected to the House of Representatives in 1962 while he was still in the Army. Member of the Military Affairs Committee. And yeah, I mean, he served in the House till 1880 when he was nominated president.
George Bush did found his own oil company, Bush Overby Oil Development Company. It generated $350,000 of capital before 1960. Bush Overby merged with another independent oil company, Lidke Brothers, Bill and Hugh. They decided to give the combined enterprise a name that began with Z, so they could find it in the Yellow Pages. And they chose Zapata Petroleum Corporation. Viva Zapata was their slogan. And it was a film, Viva Zapata, starring Marlon Brando. 1954, Bush became president of a subsidiary, Zapata Offshore Oil Company.
Busy man.
Yeah. Yeah, whereas Grover Cleveland little bit more modest, service in the House.
Garfield, rather.
Garfield. As far as
the kind of the standard run for the times, really.
Yeah.
Hayes and Garfield and Ben Harrison. Kind of similar directions. Garfield, it can be said, though, pretty much genius level. Or damn close to it. But it's not going to cut the butter in this category. This one's going to go to George H.W. Bush.
Yeah.
Who had a pretty awesome pre-presidential career.
Director of the CIA in the 1970s.
It's a big deal.
He had a lot of big jobs.
Against the USSR.
Got Gerald Ford.
William Henry Harrison.
I'm afraid that this hand is over before I've even drawn the category card. You got Jerry Ford and you got William Henry Harrison. I am decked out in my Michigan gear right now. Our listeners can't see this, but I've just told you. This category, who you going to pick first in flag football? Of any president that there is, you're going to go with Jerry Ford.
Yep.
You're going to be singing Hail to the Victors together.
Jerry Ford
after the game.
Offered contracts to play in the NFL and turned it down. Star at Michigan on the national championship teams. Number one on the Dead Presidents podcast, most athletic presidents, the greatest honor of his.
That's right. Ford, a legitimate baller.
Yeah.
Had a choice to go to professional football or politics, and chose the latter.
NFL not as lucrative a prospect at the time.
That's right. Yeah, we're talking pre-Super Bowl era. But, yeah, Jerry Ford, about the best card you could get in this one. Well, the best card you could get in this particular category. But, William Henry Harrison, I think at a certain time would be pretty good. I mean, the guy's a war hero. He knew what he was doing.
Frontier.
That's it. He's a frontiersman. He's a fighter.
Contact sport.
Yeah,
indeed. But in a game of flag football, he's just not going to be able to hold a candle to Leslie Lynch King over here.
Yeah.
So that's going to go to Jerry.
Thomas Jefferson.
James K. Polk.
And the
Clash
category,
of Titans.
Their relationship with the Constitution.
Oh.
Wow.
This is an interesting one.
Yeah, it's an
Jefferson,
interesting
mostly
category.
states' rights.
Well, yeah, Jefferson was abroad at the time of the Constitutional Convention. Wasn't, necessarily a big fan of it. At least thought that it gave too much power up to the federal government, which he maintained throughout the 1790s when Hamiltonians were in control. But then once he became president and his partisans were in control, didn't mind the power of the federal government so much.
And Polk started a war that a lot of people didn't think was constitutional in and of itself.
Well, what, by him ordering Taylor to go into disputed territory? By him kind of sparking the war?
I mean, that, and he didn't ask. You know, I mean, he's not going to Congress saying, like, you know...
Can I send Taylor out here?
No, he's going to Congress saying, hey, war exists.
Yeah.
Just letting you know.
Yeah.
There wasn't any asking. He's letting them know that we're in a state of war. There's no congressional approval.
Well,
I mean, they approve it when he just basically says we're at war.
Yeah.
But it could have gone.
Well, I mean, we were at war by that time. I think more the constitutional question of it would be, can you send Taylor into disputed territory without congressional approval, knowing that it's going to spark war?
Right.
Let's see. Polk also vetoing internal improvements on constitutional grounds in the classic Jeffersonian style, really.
Federalists were against Jefferson. They tried to actually secede in New England with the New England Confederacy, which Jefferson's party was mostly able to defeat, and they did not get the votes. Score 1 for the Constitution for holding the country together, but not so much anything to do with the Constitution. He did purchase Louisiana, which seemed far outside of his powers.
Well,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, even he thought that might not be constitutional, but it was such a good deal.
It was too good a deal
and they were
to pass
afraid
up.
that if they wasted time maybe trying to make a constitutional amendment on it, that
They might sell it to somebody else.
France would change their mind.
Yeah.
So they went ahead anyway and didn't really care about the constitutionality of it.
The constitutional amendment that was ratified under him was the 12th for electors, and giving us the Electoral College, where the people that ran on the ticket would be from the same party with a president and vice president ticket instead of first and second holding the different offices.
You got some fans of the Electoral College out there?
Yeah, well, changing the way we elect vice presidents after it was pretty much a disaster in all the elections preceding.
This is an interesting one,
good.
and it's also kind of a tough category.
Yeah. I mean, these are at least two presidents that I think have substantial things to say in the category.
Yeah, I think I'm going to rule a draw here. This is a tough one. Because they both kind of have, like Jefferson himself kind of having doubts about, hey, can I do this? Is this like constitutional?
Both of them,
and then Polk doing what he did, he was just like, well,
yeah.
we're
Both of
doing
them
this.
kind of did what they wanted regardless of the Constitution, without caring so much.
I'm going to declare this a draw.
When you're a powerful president who can get away with it.
That's it. It's a game changer.
Yep. Next up, I've got Abraham Lincoln.
FDR.
Ooh. And... oh, my God. Okay. Get ready for another tiebreaker round, because we got a pretty much, this is voided, post-presidential accomplishments. Which one of them rotted quicker in the ground? Yeah, neither of these guys got to have a post-presidency.
No.
One assassinated by man, and the other, as we've said before, assassinated by God.
Yep.
Well, Lincoln did spread awareness for My American Cousin, and FDR definitely spread awareness for polio by his death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
FDR's
about that.
post-presidential accomplishment, the constitutional amendment limiting presidents to 2 terms.
Actually, yeah, that is true. That is after him, they were like, yeah, we're not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
So I guess that can be argued, but
Well, that's not his accomplishment.
I don't think that's like a true accomplishment.
Yeah, I think we have to have another
I think we're
draw.
gonna have another draw here. This is getting serious now.
Both these cards not applicable.
And we got some great cards up for the grabs here. You
Yeah.
got Lincoln, Polk, FDR,
4
Jefferson, some
top
titans.
presidents. And
And they're
gonna be
all on the line
decided.
here.
I've got Dwight Eisenhower.
JQA.
In the category, effect on the office of the presidency.
Eisenhower made subsequent presidents known for their golfing. Eisenhower, very huge golfer as president.
Yeah.
Think about effect on the office.
Yeah, plenty had been golfing before him. Harding was a big golfer.
Yeah.
Taft, of course. Even though he didn't like people to see him golf, he liked to golf.
Would say that JQA
Well, that's not
mostly
necessarily true, he
helped
didn't.
Jackson come into office, and it was Jackson that kind of changed the presidency, and we might not have had Jackson had it not been for JQA's policies.
That's a fair
Yeah.
argument.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think JQA had some lofty goals.
Post-retirement, he had much more of an impact than he ever did as president.
Absolutely, yeah. He's one of those guys that his pre-presidency, one of the best. His post-presidency, pretty damn good. His presidency, ugh. He came in with the shadow of the corrupt bargain and didn't get to do a lot of the things that he was really looking forward to doing. And he had some pretty cool ideas. So that's unfortunate. That's a tough one.
Yeah. I mean, Eisenhower coming in the classic, like, victorious general mode.
Yeah, and that hadn't happened in a little bit.
Well, he did tell the whole country that we should not have a military-industrial complex, and then every president after him did exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in that regard, he had pretty little effect.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say either of them had a necessarily big effect on the office itself. It's not like... Yeah, like Elliott mentioned, obviously Jackson coming after JQA is the one who changed the office, so there's no,
That's right.
post-JQA presidents aren't, like, in the JQA mold.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily see Eisenhower as having that big of an effect in that sense either.
Man, we've never had... Man...
I mean, probably maybe during Eisenhower, kind of like the CIA, like, toppling regime type deals is a thing that's becoming a thing around that time. Subsequent presidents would be doing.
Subsequent CIA directors that toppled regimes that then became president.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got the Cold War going on.
One thing that could work in a conspiracy theory realm would be that it is assumed he signed a contract with the Greys, which is convenient because that's right whenever the discussion of Greys began, that he would be the president to do that and not a president 200 years ago. So you know it's true.
Yeah. Wouldn't... Yeah, the crash landing at Roswell would have occurred during Dwight Eisenhower's presidency. First president to ally with extraterrestrials. That's pretty big.
That's big.
First president to be keeping aliens secret.
He did
As all
establish.
subsequent presidents have been doing.
He did establish NASA.
Yeah. I don't know. This seems like it might be another draw.
We've never had this happen. This would be a
Parlay,
historical moment.
like-
If I were to rule a draw here,
Whoever, if we...
A 4-way draw, man. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna say it's a draw.
Probably, whoever wins the next hand is, I'm sure, going to win the game.
It seems likely.
James Monroe.
Millard Fillmore.
Okay, well. I can't say you just missed it because, well, you did just miss it, unfortunately. One of you guys, sadly, just missed this. The category that James Monroe and Millard Fillmore are going up against is... Oh, sorry. I dropped the card. Not trying to increase tension, but it's military accomplishments.
Well, Millard Fillmore, as post-president during the Civil War, made a militia company of old men, the Union Continentals.
That's
that was
right.
largely ceremonial home guard. He did not serve in the military as a young man. As president, he sent Commodore Perry with gunboat diplomacy to Japan,
Yeah, that's a big deal.
forcing Japan to sign a treaty at Navy gunpoint, in a sense.
And that helps us in two ways. It gives us a place to kind of restock on the way to China, which is now opened up thanks to John Tyler. And potentially, maybe we're going to trade with Japan in the future because they're closed off to everybody but the Dutch before this happens. So not too shabby there. But on the other hand,
James
James Monroe,
pretty distinguished, served in the Continental Army during the Revolutionary War. He rose to lieutenant, from lieutenant to major. He served with Virginia. He marched with a 700-man regiment to meet Washington in Manhattan in September 1776, wintered with Washington, and he took part in the Battle of Trenton. He led a bold charge against the enemy in order to capture 2 3-pound cannons that were about to be turned against them. He was severely wounded in the shoulder, as of course you will remember from this podcast episode on James Monroe. Monroe was promoted to captain. In 1777, he took part in engagements in Brandywine and Germantown and was promoted to major. If we go down further, his exemplary service during the Revolutionary earned him the lasting gratitude of his commander-in-chief, General Washington. He was in every instance maintained the reputation of a brave, active, and sensible officer, the words of Washington. And then during the War of 1812, he served as not only the Secretary of State, but he assumed the office of Secretary of War, who at the time, the Secretary of War allowed D.C. to be burned to the ground, so Monroe was able to take that over. And he basically had tireless efforts in the Twin Cabinet posts, and it earned him widespread acclaim as the tide of the war was turned in America's favor under his guidance.
gee, it sounds like this guy'd make a good president.
Yeah.
Pretty decent.
Yeah.
When the British were marching on D.C., Monroe got on his horse and went out to he was the first one to bring back word of where they were at.
That's it. This is good. This is going to prove a sweeping victory here.
Yeah, one of Fillmore's big commander-in-chief moments, foreign policy-wise, is when he told France, who was trying to get into Hawaii, said, "Get out of there."
Right.
But that was Monroe Doctrine, which is of course named for Monroe.
Yeah, that's it. And as we've said before, the Monroe Doctrine's always popping up.
Yeah.
This is a huge victory for James Monroe, and therefore an even bigger one for Elliott here, who's taken a whole slew of cards.
Taking 5 hands worth of cards on the strength of James Monroe.
That's
Thanks
it.
for that post-presidency career hand.
Yeah. I've got Franklin Pierce.
William McKinley.
In their category, who was the least scandalous of these two?
Ooh.
Well,
We got some fairly serious stuff going down with both of these guys.
Yeah.
Universally well liked, William McKinley. He was friendly.
Yeah, Pierce well liked as a man, not so much as a president. His whole presidency a little bit scandalous.
There's some problems going on.
Kansas-Nebraska Act, which repealed the Missouri Compromise, opening those territories north of the Missouri Compromise line to the possibility of slavery on the popular sovereignty idea, which then prompts slave owners to try to flood Kansas with slave owners, and leads to bloody encounters of huge. That's pretty scandalous.
Yeah, it's not too...
Whig Party dissolved in the wake of it.
Not a good look.
To start to form the Republican Party. And, Democratic Party would be splitting itself pretty soon. I think we had McKinley in this category before, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And determined that he didn't have...
Yeah, we pretty much talked about Hearst being the shit stirrer there because of the Spanish-American War. So, Hearst is publishing some pretty scandalous crap to try and increase interest, get us into this war. But McKinley himself,
Really, that's his only issue, was the Spanish-American War.
that's pretty much it.
He was an attorney from Cantor, Ohio. Was a U.S. representative, the governor of Ohio. Then nominated for president. Didn't drink much, one glass at a time. Played cribbage with his wife for entertainment. And his favorite play was Rip Van Winkle. Almost nothing on there.
Pierce drank a little bit more than that.
That's it.
Number 1 on the top 5 drunkest president.
That's right. I think this one's going to go to Bill McKinley.
Yep. Getting down to the last few hands.
Yeah, we're getting down to the wire here by the looks of it.
I'm going from Pierce to his successor, James Buchanan.
Barack Obama.
Out of these two guys, who would you most like to meet?
Present time meet, because that would be
Let's just
wild.
say, you have a choice. It's like a phantasmal figure appears in the room, materializes, and says to either one of you, hey, you could either meet James Buchanan, the 15th President of the United States, or Barack Obama, the 44th President of the United States. In Obama's case, I'll just kind of transport him here. Buchanan, I'm going to resurrect him from the dead so that you could talk to him.
Well,
who would you rather meet?
That sounds pretty scary.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I want to meet a zombie, but yeah, just generally, Barack Obama's a pretty cool guy. I think I'd probably rather meet him.
I would like to meet... I know that he drove a Chrysler, which I don't know many of the other presidents' cars, but I do believe that he might be the only president that had a Chrysler.
Oh, yeah. What the hell were we talking about? That's right. Chrysler. Buy a Chrysler.
James Buchanan definitely did not drive a Chrysler.
No.
More of a horse rider.
Indeed.
But yeah, James Buchanan, pretty universally considered the worst president.
I think he might be interesting to meet just to be like, what?
What
were you
meet him out of
what are you thinking? What were you thinking?
Factor and try to get at probably
Plus, it'd be interesting to see kind of how he held his head, and, winked and fidgeted and stuff. Interesting. It'd be an interesting meet, but I'd rather hang out with Obama.
Just steal something from Buchanan, and he would determine that he lacks power to do anything about it.
Sure.
Would be interesting to find out how anybody on Earth could ever decide to leave Hawaii for Chicago. It's a tough choice.
It's probably more his mom's decision.
I'd like Chicago deep dish pizza
Yeah.
better than Hawaiian
He
pizza,
did it
which
for
I
the
wouldn't eat.
pizza.
Yeah.
I would say out of curiosity, though, James Buchanan, only because you can see plenty of Obama. He has his first 3D portrait.
Yeah,
of the
that's kind
president
of the
ever
thing. Like with some of the older ones, it's interesting to think like, well, you know, it'd be interesting to meet this fella, especially since like became considered the worst.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we
President in history, so it's like-
you've seen so much of Obama on TV,
Right.
you already kind of feel like you know him a little bit. But
He'd be more fun to hang out with, definitely.
yeah,
I think Buchanan might be a more interesting meeting just because of the historical, you know, kind of context of him being
yeah.
from back in the day.
Really,
And he had a long career. I mean, he was around for a long time in politics and knew a lot of people, dealt with a lot of people.
I'd say probably the only unknown thing for Obama is if he's still smoking.
Yeah.
And if he is, how did he
Yeah, I
manage
wonder
to
if
hide
he-
it?
Well, I mean, he quit while he was president, but I wonder if he started back up afterwards. Probably not.
Yeah.
I'm sure Michelle wouldn't let him get away with that.
Mm.
Maybe think, like, if you died and went to heaven and they were like, hey, you're in luck, your roommate up in heaven, former president, would you rather it be Obama or Buchanan?
Yeah.
If you had to be in a buddy comedy with one of these guys.
I'd go Obama.
Yeah, so would I.
I guess it's tough because, like, yeah, you know more about him, but at the same time, yeah, what would old Jimmy Buck be like? I don't know. I don't think he'd be as fun as Obama. I think I'm going to award this hand to Barack Obama.
Yeah, I agree. Next, I've got Warren Harding.
Andrew Jackson.
And they're going head to head with the economy.
Ooh. Not great for Andrew
Well,
Jackson.
Yeah, I think we keep getting Jackson.
Yeah, Jackson's come up on this one a couple times, and like the thing that we've talked about before is technically while he was president, it was okay. It was 2 weeks later that everything went to hell, but it was directly because of his
Policies.
that things ended up that way. The whole bank fight.
Well, I'd say it's partially because of his policies.
He specifically tried to get rid of the National Bank.
Yeah. I mean, the economy is cyclical, and there was a land bubble that, was going on for years that he didn't cause, but his policies didn't necessarily help.
It permitted it to exist and continue to grow and grow and grow.
Well, he tried to stop the bubble and said he popped the bubble pretty much.
And James, now you're on a mission trying to find how the economy was doing under President Warren G.
Well, it's during a decade known as the Roaring '20s.
That's right.
So, once again, on the, further ahead of a bubble, he's more at the beginning.
Unabated stock watering taking
Beginning of
place, which was the 1920s equivalent of land speculation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty much true. So he's probably kind of in a similar way
Yeah,
as Jackson, like just sitting back and
Yep.
enjoying the economy.
pretty much.
While private actors are eventually taken too far.
And Coolidge pretty much follows that as well.
And Jackson not even too great with his own finances. I don't believe that he had a overwhelmingly fancy house down in Tennessee, did he?
The Hermitage is pretty nice.
Eventually he did.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah, that's fair.
He started
Yeah,
off
eventually.
pretty low.
Yeah.
He got an inheritance that he lost all gambling and partying
Yeah.
as a young man.
Pisses away a bunch of money early on.
He ended up pretty well off.
By the end of things, he was doing all right.
I don't know.
Well, I think I'm going to make my ruling. I mean, it's kind of unfair, but just given the times, if you were to actually look at the numbers and the graphs and the charts, I think things would be looking better under Warren G.
Because really the land speculation was a direct result of Jackson's Indian removal policy. where the land came
No.
from that was speculated upon. Warren G. Harding didn't create a single issuance of a stock.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd just say, Harding further removed from the Depression and doesn't have any policies that are specifically blamed for it, as
Right.
Jackson sometimes is.
We're going to give it to him. And we're down to the final hand, boys.
Martin Van Buren.
Versus John Tyler.
In the category Strength of Presidential Appointments.
Well, Tyler started off inheriting a cabinet,
That's right.
and I'd give him credit in terms of appointments in getting Daniel Webster to stay, because he's the only one who didn't resign.
That's
And
right.
So while Tyler didn't technically appoint him, he did keep him around when he might otherwise have left.
One of our best sects of state.
Huge effect.
And that's SACS, you perverts.
And then he appointed, Webster did the Webster-Ashburton Treaty, and then since Webster did not support annexing Texas, he got out of there, and Tyler ended up getting Abel Upshur in there, who did a pretty good job putting Texas on the table until he got blown up.
He got blowed up real good.
Then he put in John C. Calhoun, who didn't necessarily help things with Texas, but it ended up getting done. Let's see. Yeah, Tyler. Yeah, I mean, he had Thomas Gilmore in there. Abel Upshur had previously been Naval Secretary. I mean, he ended up getting in there enough people to get Texas done. He got eventually, the Texas team on it.
And Buren really only appointed holdovers from Jackson.
Telling the party line, old MVB is.
Secretary of War was his only non-holdover, and that was someone from John Quincy Adams' cabinet.
Oh.
It does look, though, in terms of extending an olive branch, Van Buren did work with John Forsyth, who was on the opposite side under Jackson from Van Buren. He kept him as a holdover, even though he had intended to resign as Secretary of State.
Mm-hmm.
The Attorney General, I don't believe that is the Butler that Butler PA is named for, because this Benjamin Butler was a law partner of Van Buren. So that is not the general that Butler, Pennsylvania is named after.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily seeing any, huge earth-shaking names in Van Buren's cabinet. He, of course, not that successful as president and getting much done.
Not that he's a recognizable name, but the Secretary of Navy, James K. Paulding, did have an expedition make it to Oregon, on the water, not on the land, and also to Antarctica.
That's pretty interesting.
Cool.
I'm leaning towards Johnny Tide just with Daniel Webster. I don't know. It seems like MVB kind of just keeping the Jackson line.
Pulled them right
John
over.
Tyler is like, hey, I'm the president now, so if you don't like it, you could walk.
Yeah.
But hey, you really should stay.
Yeah, that was such a huge moment for his presidency when Webster agreed to stay.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't he say, told Webster, give me your word on that, and Henry Clay is a doomed man. That was how he would have been screwed, maybe, if he didn't get Webster to stick around.
It's a distinct possibility. So this hand is going to go to John Tyler. And now we come to the time of the game where we do the card count. We're back. It's result time.
Well, I got 20.
20 for James J. Hamilton.
24.
And 24 for Elliott Burns, making him the victor of this game of presidential war.
Congratulations,
Elliott.
Thank you.
A close victory. That's actually the closest margin you can win by.
That
to
is.
have it not be a tie. It's that big James Monroe victory.
Yeah.
Wrapping up all those that tiebreaker hand.
Indeed. So,
Thanks for being on the show, Elliott.
Nice intellectual game of war. Yeah, thank you, Elliott.
You want to tell the folks at home how to find you on social media?
I have a Facebook. That is the only social media that I have tied to comedy. It's my name, Elliott Burns. My Instagram is just photos of cars.
Cool.
If you like me, you can catch me not this Thursday coming up, but the Thursday after. Dale put me on a show. I forget where and when.
Is that at McGrogan's?
It could be.
Dale Miller? Yeah, I did
Dale
a show
Miller
there.
show. He has me on not this Thursday, but the next Thursday. So would that be the 14th?
They're doing shows Thursday there? Well, when will this show come out? This show will come out on the 14th. This show will be released on Monday the 14th.
So it might be that night. Hold on, Dale messaged me about it.
Wouldn't that be exciting? You could promote a show for tonight.
Yeah.
And we could pretend that it's happening tonight, even though this is a couple
It is
weeks in advance.
Mike's in Cannonsburg. Oh, no, wait. No, that's not it. I wasn't available. Mike's on 6/17, so 3 days from now. I don't know where Mike's is. I'm in a poster on Facebook that is not on my wall.
Yeah.
I will also be in the RWC Rumble Challenge on a Saturday this month in McKees Rocks at the Parkway Theater.
Is that the roast battle?
Yes.
Who are you roasting?
Justin Sabo.
Wow.
Yeah. It is
Better watch out.
Mike's Beer Bar. 110 Federal Street, Thursday, 6/17 at 8 p.m. You can see me, Johnny Lee Dam, Andy Stuchel, Brandon Shell, Andrew Hillary, and Gino.
Nice. I will be on the show at the Tony Dale on June 18th, where Elliott has just performed recently. And the Dead Presidents Podcast is on social media, Twitter, Instagram at Dead Prez Podcast, Prez with a Z, and on Facebook.com/Dead Prez Podcast, I believe.
That's it. You could listen to us pretty much everywhere. You could check out podcasts.
Yep. We're on all the podcast apps. We're on YouTube. Subscribe to the podcast. Rate and review. Tell all of your friends. And then play Presidential War with them.
That's it. It's out there for you. We put it out there. Grab it. Run with it.
Copyrighted by the Dead Presidents Podcast.
That's right.
Someday we'll
I'm
probably
trying to steal it, but you
release.
can grab it and run with it.
We'll get Milton Bradley to release the game officially.
That's it.
But you can play at home as long as you specifically credit us as having invented it.
That's right. So, another great game of Presidential War in the books. As always, the biggest winner is the listeners. You
Indeed.
learn every time we open our mouths. It's a beautiful thing. For the Dead Presidents Podcast, I'm Stephen Lincoln Douglas.
And I'm James J. Hamilton.
I'm Elliott.
Thanks for being here, and we'll see you guys next time.